So, hey, Donnie, we didn't forget about the Epstein files. So, you released Martin Luther King, JFK. I remember the episode on Fox News, the interview, where he said, when he was on the campaign trail, where he was asked about this stuff. And he said, "Will you release Martin Luther King?" He said, "Yeah." JFK? Yep. What about the Epstein files? Yeah. I mean, less so, because, I wouldn't want people to get hurt if there's, fake stuff in there. People, it could ruin lives. Like yours. Like yours, you pedo. Look at all these pictures of him with Epstein from one simple Google search. I mean, and then when, Ghislaine Maxwell was on trial, I remember him saying, he was president then, being asked about it, him saying, "Well, I don't know her. I've heard of it. I followed it a little, but I wish her well." Remember that? Here he is with her right here. Because they all lived in Palm Beach. Epstein lived in Palm Beach. His Mar-a-Lago, that weird castle Disneyland obscenity, monstrosity, that was where Epstein picked up some girls. He had a lot of underage girls working there. This goes back so far with him and Epstein. They'd been friends for decades. In fact, Bob Woodward, an excellent reporter who broke Nixon stuff back in the day, he came out, he dropped 100 hours of audio of Epstein talking about Trump. He did this like a week before the election. I think too little, too late, of course. And it just wasn't talked about. And a lot of the Epstein files were like, the flight logs are out there already. Nobody talks about them because Trump's all over them. They all over them. He's been on that plane so many times. In fact, he bought that plane. He bought, what does he call it? The Lolita or something. He bought that plane. Allegedly, that's where him and Melania had sex the first time, according to Epstein, on that plane. So he bought that plane and he was using it to campaign. This just isn't this last election. I remember reporters asking him about it, and he denied knowing that it was his plane. And, yeah, what about the Epstein files? I'm waiting. I'd love to read them. I love reading. I read all day. Come on. What about that? I'm here for it. What kind of grown man, you have to think about all of this in context. What kind of grown man, like a real estate guy, goes out and starts purchasing beauty pageants? There's so many horror stories from these girls that were in those pageants. A lot of them have done interviews talking about how uncomfortable and how gross this guy was, barging into the dressing rooms when they were naked, which he bragged about on Howard Stern. Look it up. It's out there. All true. Man, same interview where he said that his own personal Vietnam was avoiding communicable diseases in the 80s. But he didn't actually answer the question and say he avoided them. When Howard Stern asked him about it, he just started talking. He never answered the question as to whether he actually avoided them. I have to point out, I'm going to take this time, because I don't talk about this stuff enough, but I'm going to point out, during the E. Jean Carroll trial, she was raped. It's out there. The judge clarified the word rape. The colloquial definition of rape applies to this case. I don't know why ABC settled, because they were right to use that fucking word. Anyway, I would be more concerned about the fact that E. Jean Carroll couldn't tell if it was his finger or his penis. I'd be able to tell. Oh, Donnie, we already know. Stormy told all. She told all. Release those files.